my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and this is Ginny O Reads, the part of the channel where I read the first chapter of an independent science fiction or fantasy novel. This week, I've decided to read the first chapter of Unsplash 10, a young adult fantasy novel by Rebecca M. Horner. You can follow along on Amazon by using the Look Inside feature. From the back. Unsplash 10. A baby unicorn must be protected. He picks one human, usually a girl, to be his guard. Unfortunately, Sun Raiders is a little reluctant. Kaylee Boletto wishes the worst problem she had was the unicorn in her grandmother's barn. But no, Moonshine's colt, Sunny, has decided in his baby mind that Kaylee is perfect for his new best friend and guard for his vulnerable first year of life. Despite her aggressive and prickly nature, though, the thought of violence makes Kaylee queasy, and the sight of blood makes her downright ill. But little Sunny's magic is a beacon for everything that goes bump in the night. The goblins are after him, and Kaylee's all he has to keep him safe and alive. Let's get right into it. Unsplash 10 by Rebecca M. Horner. Chapter 1. The Hammer's Coming Down by Nickelback. Kaylee laid flat on her belly in front of the mouse hole. At least the rug was thick, protecting her from the cold floors. With some wiggling, she got her quilt brought up over her back to keep the rest of her warm too. With that done, she rested her chin on her forearms, remembering that she would need to keep her voice soft and gentle. She had learned long ago that mice didn't like it when she smiled too big, or really did anything that showed too much teeth. They also didn't like it when she loomed over them in any way. "It's all right. I won't hurt you," she said to her unexpected new roommates. "Are you sure you aren't going to scream?" Kaylee managed, barely, not to laugh. She worked to keep it contained. "I'm sure," she said, holding out one of her hands with confidence. "You aren't my first roommate with fur or feathers." The inhabitant of the mouse hole stirred and eased his way into the room proper. A light brown field mouse, he was underfed and young, with big wet eyes. "There, that wasn't so bad, was it?" Kaylee asked, holding everything but her mouse still. That seemed to give the little mouse enough courage to approach her hand, resting his paws on the tips of her fingers so he could stand up on his hind feet. His nose twitched as he sniffed her curiously. "Why can't all humans talk to us?" he asked, pulling back from her hand. "It would make things much simpler." "I think the better question would be why I understand you, but no one seems to know the answer to that one either," Kaylee said with a shrug, tucking her hand back under the heavy quilt so it would stay warm. Judging by the August weather, winter was going to be a bear this year. Of course, she hadn't been in this part of the state in years. This might be the new normal. Either way, if she was right, it didn't bode well for her new friend, or his various relatives. They needed proper food, not just whatever scraps they were stealing from the kitchen. "Have you all ever considered moving out there to the barn?" she asked. "Kate wouldn't find you there, and there's surely more food." He shuddered, curling inwards a little. "Boss says there are cats in the barn," he said in horror. Well, that explained it. Kaylee smirked and leaned a little closer. "I talk to cats too," she told him. Any animal, to tell the whole truth. They were better companions than people, in her mind. Some would even follow her when she changed homes, if it was possible. Her friend, though, looked at her like she was the bravest person in the world. She held back her smile again. "I'll talk to the cats tomorrow," she offered. If there were cats. This had the markers of his boss scaring the underlings to explain why they stayed in such a bad situation. Perking up, the mouse scrambled up the rug, leaning his paws against her nose to look her in the eye. Kaylee almost went cross-eyed, and it made her nose itch, feeling those little paws there. "Really? You can do that?" he asked. "Of course," she said, "though I'll want to talk to your boss, too, and make the terms agreeable." She wasn't about to help one group of animals and it cause an avalanche of further problems. "Right, right!" The little mouse's tail was flickering behind him in his excitement. "Oh, this is wonder—" A harsh rattle of the window cut him off, and scared Kaylee out of her wits, not to mention the mouse, who went running back into the safety of his home. "Jesus!" Kaylee muttered. She stood up, shaking off the quilt and walking towards the bay window. The seat cushion there was more comfortable for leaning on and peering out into the yard, or at least this side of it. At first, all she saw was her own reflection. Long dark hair, pale skin, gray-blue eyes set in an oval face. In the background was the room she'd been given. Pale blue, white, and pink. It was basically more suited for a young child, not an almost 18-year-old. Then her eyes adjusted and she could see clearly. The branches of the tree on this side of the house swayed, as if a harsh wind had just shaken them. Nothing was walking around outside. No strange cars besides her grandmother's beat-up truck. She breathed a little easier, ready to dismiss it and coax her friend out of his hiding place. Except for the light in the barn. Frowning, Kaylee glanced at the old alarm clock on the bedside table nearest to her. The red numbers glowed the time. Still an hour before the sun would be up, if not more. Kay shouldn't be up in there. Kaylee didn't care how early its Stables day started. There wasn't anyone else here, and she swore the nearest neighbor was a couple miles down the road. So who was in the barn? Better to check it out and it be nothing, than for her to have seen something, and Kay ream her out for it later. She wasn't sure if Kay was one of those relatives yet or not. Climbing out of her awkward perch in the window seat, Kaylee reached for her duffel and dug out a pair of socks. Her pajama shorts and top weren't too scandalous, and her cowboy boots were over by the door, the only pair of shoes she had unpacked at this point, and also the only ones not held together by duct tape. The house was tricky to navigate, mostly due to her unfamiliarity with it. There hadn't been time for a tour when she got there, since her plane had arrived at Will Rogers Airport so late. The back door was hidden in a small mudroom, and didn't lead out onto any sort of back porch, just some rickety wooden steps. Pausing to reorient herself now that she was facing the exact opposite of the direction of her bedroom, Kaylee was grateful that the barn wasn't too far from the house. The light made it easier to figure out where she was going next. She picked her way over the roots of the same tree that had smacked her window. Kaylee paused, resting her hand against the trunk, listening for any clue of what was going on. Sharp, high-pitched screams that didn't sound like any animal Kaylee had ever heard before mixed with the bellow of one very big, very angry horse. Under all of it, two piping voices argued. "Gets it, gets it, gets it!" "Can't, stupid! Gate is Bernie!" What the? Kaylee shook her head, wondering if this was a dream and she had fallen asleep in the window seat upstairs, or if the local kids were really that dumb. A high-pitched squeal of fear came from inside, along with cackles of laughter. That shook Kaylee into action. She ran into the barn to put a stop to this, whatever it was, only to stumble to a stop at what she saw. It wasn't a big barn. One large stall to the left of the entrance, and another in the back, with a walkway in between, and a storage room on the north side of the left stall. Hard-packed earth instead of a proper floor, the stalls had wood shavings to create beds for their four-legged owners. Standing in the middle of the hallway, and surrounding one of the stalls, were creatures unlike anything Kaylee had ever seen before. Their skin was a variety of motley earth tones, from the stone gray to moss green to bark brown. None of them had more than a couple of hairs clinging to the top of their heads. Some had beaky noses, others broad, squat ones, all with gaping mouths underneath full of sharp teeth. Their eyes were small and beady, reminding Kaylee of crows, clever, mischievous, but not that smart. Their clothes were nothing more than bits of rags wrapped around their waists like kilts, some with leather pieces on their arms and chests, that if she tilted her head to the side and squinted, could be taken as armor. But that wasn't the strangest thing, at least in her opinion. Inside the stall, like he was another one of her grandmother's horses, was something. It kept flickering in Kaylee's vision between two different shapes. The first was a big, shaggy draft horse, sleepy and docile. His black and white paint coat was completely normal. Nothing about him should have been startling. But then it would solidify into what she suspected was his real shape. His head was too small to be a horse, delicate, like a deer. Even the ears were closer to a stag in her opinion, and those hooves were definitely cloven, under the white feather hair hanging there. His tail swished behind him, more like a lion's for the first couple feet before it turned into waves and waves of a horse's tail dragging the ground. He was easily 6 foot to the shoulder, and if anything, he stood taller, prouder than the horse illusion, and that was intimidating. The paint coat was an obvious illusion, too. His real coloring was inky black, only his mane and tail a bright white like fresh snow. And his eyes? Those weren't the warm, friendly brown or staring ice blue of a normal horse. They were dark blue, like the night sky, and they were as intelligent as any human. And the kicker? The dark crystal horn coming out of his forehead, easily a yard long. A unicorn. End Chapter 1. Well, my lovelies, I hope you enjoyed my reading of Chapter 1 of Sunsguard 10 by Rebecca M. Horner. What do you think of the story so far? Please leave a comment. If you enjoyed my channel, please like, subscribe, and share. If there's an independent science fiction or fantasy book you'd like me to review, please leave the title and a sell link in the comments below. My review guidelines are on my website, link in the description. You can follow me on Twitter at Ginny0, or you can find me at my website, ginny0.wordpress.com. That is Ginny, the number 0.wordpress.com. I'm doing this on my own time and with my own money, so I've set up a Ko-fi account to help with expenses. If you'd like to see me read and review more independent science fiction and fantasy books, please consider donating to my Ko-fi. Any help is appreciated. Thank you. Next time, a full book review of Sunsguard 10. See you in the next video, my lovelies.